coming to the final panel of today's discussion. The final panel will be about current developments within the growing Belarusian diaspora, and it will be moderated by Christopher Forst, Project Director of FriedrichEbert Foundation in Kiev, and he will introduce the panelists.
Thank you very much. As Peter has already said, my name is Christopher Forst. I'm the Belarus representative of FES and based in Kiev. This panel is, so to say, wrapping up the day because we are referring to everything we've already talked about and widening our view a little bit. We have talked today already about growing migration from Belarus. We've talked about the media, and we've talked about education. All of this will somehow be referred to again when we talk about migration challenges. We'll certainly talk about support for relocated Belarusians with our panel. When we talk about the media, we will certainly talk about support for journalists, and when we talk about education, we will most likely talk about scholarships. We've already heard about the Kalinowski program, for example, today, which I think was very relevant for this panel as well, and I found it very interesting. Here we are the diaspora organizations panel to some extent, and we are widening the gap insofar that we have representatives here, not only from Poland, but also from Ukraine and Germany. After all, this is a German-Belarusian forum. I'm speaking English because I'm also German. I beg for forgiving for that. I hope we will manage, because I think the rest of the panel will speak Russian. So sometimes we might need some longer breaks for translation, but I think we will all manage that. Having said that, I would like to start with the only person on our panel that's not called Ales or Aliaksandr, which is Palina Brodik from Free Belarus Center in Kiev, where I also traveled from. And I'd like to hear from you, Palina, a little bit about your work right now in Kiev, what the upcoming challenges are. As someone who lives in Kiev, obviously we are all aware of those public things that you have been involved in, for example, an exhibition on Maidan Square, but I know that you do a lot more. You do some of the things we've just already mentioned, support for relocated people, support for journalists, but also political advocacy, which I think is particularly challenging also in the Ukrainian context, considering that some of these numbers we've heard today already from Poland about visa that have been issued and many other things are a lot lower in Ukraine, and also due to the political circumstances, I think, at least I think that's your point of view. So I would like to hear more from you about that, and give the floor over to you, Palina.
Thank you, Christopher. Good evening to everyone. I will try not to repeat of what has already been said today. And just like Christopher has said, first and foremost, we are giving aid, extending aid to the refugees. And we call spade a spade. They are refugees. They are not relocated people. They're refugees. And from the point of view of international law, it's important to claim that so that we do not shut our eyes closed, that it's not just living on business. They are refugees. And we appeared here last year in August, just like other organizations, and of course it was not planned. It was an emergency response to the situation in Belarus. And initially we thought, okay, let us give some help to people with their legal and other problems. But more and more people kept on coming here, and those were people not only with psychological problems, not only with medical problems, not only with PTSD, and people had some healthcare problems, medical problems, traumatic problems, and but those people suffered pain, and not only pain, they brought also a lot of energy. Those are the people who were quite active, and it was, for many of them, was first ever active participation in political life. And that potential was untapped and still maintained as they were forced to leave for another country. So we started gradually thinking, okay, how shall we utilize that potential? Can we translate that potential into something useful? How to convert that potential into real activity? And yes, we do extend humanitarian aid, and so we provide for legal consultations, we provide for housing help, we give psychological help, and we do it in cooperation with the German RAZAM association. But also we run educational activities, and those educational activities consist of two parts. We have formal education and informal education. Formal education is our cooperation with institutions, with universities, and we cooperate with the Kiev Mogilev Academy. We have a scholarship program in cooperation with that Ukrainian university, so we give help to students who had been excluded. But also we have informal education, and that is training of all sorts. So it's security-related training, and we also have a 3-month program, accelerator program, that is earmarked for a very narrow group of people, such as journalists, for instance. So now we're concluding an accelerator program for investigative journalism, and also we will have programs, accelerated programs on project management, on women leaders, on advocacy, and so on and so forth. So all those people who moved to Ukraine, who stayed in Ukraine, who want to develop, and those people really have this zeal and will to act, and they want to have new knowledge. These people finally have this opportunity to gain that knowledge, and so we are there to foster the development of civil society. Yes, it is abroad. It's not in Belarus, but they may, we hope, and they will, we hope, return back to Belarus with all the knowledge they will have gained abroad. Yes, people have to move out their comfort zone, and it's very difficult for them. And we see that it's not so easy for them to do all the paperwork related to residency permits, and people cannot return to Belarus. But still, there is a window of opportunity for many of us. So let us focus on that, because we have been there in Kiev for a year and a half now. Well, basically, we know it's not so easy to face the new reality, but we need to adapt, and we need to draw benefits from it. So I think for all of us now, that's quite a very opportune time to learn as we stay abroad in neighboring countries. And in Ukraine, they made quite a number of mistakes, but also Ukrainians have a lot of positive experience that Belarusians may learn about. Likewise in Poland, likewise in Georgia, likewise in any post-Soviet country. And so we want people not to lose their will to develop and wish to develop, so that those people gradually move from this condition of functioning under a paternalistic system, so that they move on to a participative modus operandi when they themselves become change makers. And speaking of advocacy, this is a very good example. So we, as an organization, deal with national advocacy in Ukraine. So we promote legalization for Belarusians. We help them with employment and security. Again, today we spoke about the security abroad, and in Ukraine there are risks. We know of those risks. We know that Ukrainian special force services cooperate with the Belarusian special services, and sometimes Ukrainian migration office agency does deliver Belarusians to Belarusian authorities, willingly or not willingly. But Belarusians now understand that it is possible to talk to the state authorities. It is possible to talk to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's possible to talk to the Migration Service of Ukraine. And there is even a possibility of talking to special services of Ukraine. This is unique experience. So that when I faced in Ukraine in 2015, I moved to Ukraine, and 2 months later, I had my first meeting in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It was unimaginable at the time. And so all those people who are in Ukraine right now, they're experiencing that new discovery. and then they will come back someday. And for me, it's quite a positive thing, because regardless of all those negative things that we have been facing, there are still many positive things. And what is most important for today is the legalization of their stay on the 23rd of November. We hope that the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine will have a committee hearing, that is a human rights committee. They're going to hold a hearing on legalization. They're going to talk about the security of Belarusians, and they're going to talk about the reaction of law enforcement of Ukraine. Georgia has given us a good example, that is Georgia is not going to expel Belarusians. Ukrainians still have not made such a declaration, but we do hope that the migration law of Ukraine shall be changed by the end of this year, and due to that, more Belarusians can stay in the territory of Ukraine, because for large part of Belarusians, Ukraine may turn out to be as a friendly Belarusians friendly country as Poland is. Many Belarusians left for Poland from Ukraine and then returned back to Ukraine. Anyway, this is it. Thank you very much, and this over to the next speaker. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to say that I was told that we should speak a bit slower. This also goes for me, but also for you, Palina, because the translators have to understand us. I would like to follow up on one thing, though. Could you give us some numbers on how many Belarusians there actually are in Ukraine, how many visa, how many people have been granted asylum, and maybe also how many cases of such roaring extraditions or attempts to extradite people have taken place?
Well, I cannot quote you the exact numbers because different agencies would present different figures, but we know that 300,000 at least have crossed the border, Belarusian-Ukrainian border, over the year. Most of them left somewhere elsewhere, but we do not know where. But we may assume that many of them left for Lithuania, Poland, and Georgia. In 2021, approximately 2,500 people were granted temporary residency permits. 700 people received a permanent residency permit, and 700 were refused residency permit. And as far as asylum is concerned, approximately 15 to 17 people have received a positive answer on to their application for granting asylum. There is the status, legal status. It's called international protection. Yes, international protection status was granted to 17. As far as expulsion is concerned, for the first half year of 2021, 16 Belarusian citizens were expelled from Ukraine to Belarus following the application of Belarusian authorities, but we prevented a number of cases and we saved some people. Some people were dragged out from a pre-border zone. Some people were dragged out of the airport premises, and there is a person who actually won a court case, which is quite an unprecedented thing to have. This is it. Thank you.
Much to Germany, to one of our 4 people with the same name, alias Moisseenko. Palina has already mentioned that you also cooperate actually between Ukraine and Germany, so that would something I would like to follow up on when you give us an impression of what you are doing. The Belarusian diaspora in Germany has substantially grown, but it has also substantially become more active with your organization, with RAZAM actually, which was established on 9th August last year. And I would like to hear from you, as someone who has lived in Germany for a very long time actually, what this has done to the Belarusian diaspora community, what kind of spirit there is now, but also what you're focusing on right now in your work, obviously.
Да, спасибо большое.
Thank you very much. I haven't lived in Germany for some time. I was born in Germany, and I've spent my whole life there. Our association, RAZAM, was established In August 2020, on the 9th of August, the so-called day of presidential election. And we are a volunteer organization which includes different initiatives, including one of the initiatives that is offering assistance to refugees to Ukraine. We cooperate with Grodno Kut and some other organizations. We collect donations among citizens of Germany to pay for shelters in Kiev. In September, 2,000 euro was earmarked for 45 people for their shelter, for their housing. So this is more or less the monthly amount of funding. Other initiatives include assistance to refugees in Germany, not in the same amount as in Ukraine. Germany issued 50 humanitarian visas. It is very little compared to Poland. In Poland, it's 6,000 humanitarian visas, as far as I'm concerned. And those refugees who arrive, they are in touch with us, and we try to help them with translation. We also pay for legal services. The Kuraja film was shown, and we paid for the tickets. And we had a summer camp for refugees so that they can spend some time and forget about their problems for a while. And frankly speaking, each and every refugee has at least one volunteer who helps them so that they can be called and they can go to a physician for a medical check or to fill in some documents and help in every other way. And apart from those who have humanitarian visas, there are other individuals who arrived to ask for asylum, so there are dozens of them. We help around 100 refugees that we assist. Maybe there are more of them, but this is at least the minimum number. We also assist cooperating with BERICO, the human rights organization. So we offer medical assistance, medical services, so that people who were victims of torture, who suffered as a result of the aftermath of the protests, so that they can get some rehabilitation in Germany. We also help political prisoners. And on a monthly basis, we assist more than 30 political prisoners financially so that they can purchase something. And the fifth initiative, it is paying for the project opposite the Belarusian embassy in Berlin. There is a wagon, a train car that we call the alternative embassy, with a white, red and white flag. And we hang posters that inform about what is going on in Belarus, and you can send a postcard. So we rent this train car because we believe that the German society has to be informed about what is going on in Belarus. So this is one of our activities. We want Belarus to be on the agenda. So apart from donations, there are some cultural initiatives as well. Every week we have Zoom meetings and we invite cultural representatives of culture, writers, for example, artists, and we have a journal for children in Belarusian. It is also part of our activity. Let me also emphasize that we are officially registered volunteer organization. We can issue documents testifying that donations have been made. So those donations can be deducted from taxes, because if they offered some donation, they can deduct it from taxes, which motivates people to donate. Speaking of challenges, typically in the German context, what can I say? We have similar challenges. There is some issue with the professional burnout of our volunteers. And there are people who want to help, but they don't know how to help. So we try to structure these initiatives and to be more professional, to use human resources in full, because there are not only many Belarusians, but also numerous German citizens who want to help Belarusians. And as I've mentioned, Germany issued 50 humanitarian visas, so this contingent is over. We appealed to the Ministry of the Interior to increase the number of humanitarian visas so that our diaspora can help Belarusians. We have a lot of volunteers who would like to help. Right, so this is it as regards the current situation. The new government, SDP, the Green Party, will form a coalition, and they have a positive attitude to Belarusians. We have good relations with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of the Interior. So if someone applies for a humanitarian visa, the German embassy suggests they can contact us, so we could help a lot of people. And we hope for further cooperation under the new government, and we are highly optimistic about the future.
Yes, the continuation of the action plan, civil society Belarus, is certainly a big talking point right now, and then also potentially increasing the number of humanitarian visa. I'm sure that is something that's high on the agenda of RAZAM and of everyone who cares about Belarusians in Germany these days. I would like to also ask a personal question as the youngest representative here on the panel. You said you were born in Germany, actually, but your parents came from Belarus in the late 90s, right? Do you think that young people, and looking at RAZAM, from my impression, there is many young people actually in the Belarusian diaspora in Germany these days. Is there a new sort of spirit? Is this different somehow? Is your generation looking at events in Belarus different in your view? Has this changed something? That there is this sort of new generation. Another person from RAZAM said in an interview that Belarusians had learned to be helpless and had now overcome that feeling somehow. Would you like to share some opinion on that?
Да, also мои родители, они...
My parents wanted to create an association of Belarusians in Germany, but they didn't manage to establish anything officially before 2020. There was no Belarusian organization registered officially prior to 2020 because people didn't see any reason to do that. They were pessimistic. those refugees who arrived in Germany in the early 21st century, they didn't deal with political issues, and only in the aftermath of 2020, when they saw such a huge inflow of Belarusians, and when they could see that there were huge protests and people took to the streets in Belarus. In June, late June, I remember, there was the first action in Munich, and people thought that only 100 people would arrive despite the pandemic, but there was at least 150, and the police protected the initiative and appealed not to violate the rules. And this was a wonderful feeling that there were so many Belarusians in Germany who didn't lose their hope, who were ready to do something, to voice their opinion and to help in this country. And it gave a lot of hope and motivation to my parents. They're also part of RAZAM organization. In 2020, the first representative of Belarusian diaspora was registered officially.
It's a good transition to the Belarusian Youth Hub and back to Warsaw. Alias Lapko, you have been active in a number of initiatives in By Help, by COVID-19, Intellectual Club. You are leading the Belarusian Youth Hub, which is affiliated with the Center of Belarusian Solidarity here. We've already heard a bit about the situation of Belarusians in Poland today, so I'm not going to ask you too much in detail about that. I would like to hear a little bit what you actually do at the Belarusian Youth Hub, but maybe you can also add what your general impression is of the Belarusian diaspora and how it has developed, and what's also going on a more international level within the Belarusian diaspora.
Слышно? Раз.
Can you hear me? Christopher, thank you very much for your question and the suggestion that I can focus on Belarusian diaspora, whether it is active now and whether it was active earlier. There is no common understanding as regards the Belarusian diaspora in Poland. We speak about Belarusians in Poland, Belarusian groups in Poland, Belarusian minority in Poland, those who were born in Poland and were raised in Poland. And do we have the Belarusian diaspora in Poland? Is it just developing, or is it full-fledged? Broadly speaking, diaspora is not only about individuals. It is the group of people who understand that they make an input into the development of the Belarusian community. It has been mentioned today, and let me reiterate, there are different waves of growing interest to Belarusians, which is related to repressions in Belarus, and active people were leaving Belarus and they wanted to do something for Belarus in Poland, and people present here in the audience are part of it. I left for Poland to study, actually, and now I cannot go back. So I was not expelled from Belarus. I cannot go back because I have become active in Poland. Speaking about the birth of the diaspora, this year we may say that there is a huge wave of solidarity with Belarusians and support for Belarusians by COVID-19 showed that diaspora can do a lot, because in different countries members of diasporas did not fully trust their activities, but they could see the results of their activities, and they can say that civic initiatives can do much more than the Ministry of Health and other ministries. And we understood that civil society, including Belarusian civil society, has to be assisted and supported from abroad. Belarusians have to learn how to be active, how to develop democracy. And Belarusians, as Professor Wardematsky said, left Belarus, they could have a more objective view of Belarusian reality.
So the Belarusians have become more active both in Belarus and abroad. And for instance, how it was manifested in the campaign of supporting medical doctors during the COVID campaign, or by help, that was another campaign to help those who were battered during the protests, and $3 million and then $4 million were collected, and most of the money was collected from the Belarusians abroad in order to support those who were suffering from repression. So that was this general wave of solidarity when the Belarusians started leaving the country. So that was help given on sites, but also in Poland. In Poland now we have dozens of more organizations. Some are quite old organizations, as the Belarusian House, where we are today, but there are some other organizations. In Białystok, for instance, there is another organization where there is a national Belarusian minority, and there has always been Belarusian minority. But there are many new organizations. We have a Belarusian Youth Hub. It is an organization that was established much before 2020, and perhaps with some organizations, not everything was earmarked for the Belarusians. It was also giving help to Ukrainians and Russians who were joining our intellectual club. But in 2020, a lot changed. And as Aliaksandr said, when in München, 150 people went on protest, and they thought it would be much less. But in Warsaw, there was a campaign for 150 people. They thought 150 people would go with the protest, but it was 3,000 people. And I saw that was a sea of people in front of the Belarusian embassy in Warsaw. And I understood that this is the day when the Belarusians understood that we can change things, that we could do things, and the wave is still out there. It's not diminishing. There are more and more Belarusians. Some people are burned out. Some people are tired. Volunteers keep leaving and coming, but we keep on working to make sure that we actually are capable of giving a helping hand to the Belarusians here in Poland. So we unite together. We build up horizontal links with other already existing organizations. So it's nice to see when it's turning into something bigger, like an association of Belarusian organizations, which will become quite an important association, and it will have a voice on par with other diasporas in the international arena. So unlike many other countries, Poland is the country where the Belarusian diaspora is dispersed all over the territory of the country, because the Belarusians who arrive to Poland from Belarus, they think that there is no life beyond Warsaw, and many people want to go to Warsaw only. But we keep explaining that there are other towns, smaller towns, but in smaller towns they may receive more attention. They also have Belarusian organizations, there are volunteers, there are Poles who are ready to help and support. And in fact, not many Belarusians go to smaller towns, but still we are referring them to smaller towns. We have many partners, and we are in touch with all of our partners. And if in the past the Belarusians frequently were being dissolved in Polish society because our histories, our cultures, our language is quite similar, and it was not so prestigious to stay Belarusian, so Ukrainians remained Ukrainians, especially after 2014, 2015. So the Ukrainians were quite manifest with being Ukrainians, but Belarusians in 2010, they have this new point of time. So Belarusian sounds proud. So we need to stay Belarusians. We need to prove that we are Belarusians worthy being Belarusians. So I think that in the future, the Belarusian diaspora that was born in Poland will become truly Belarusian diaspora, and the next generations of young Belarusians will not become the Poles, but will remain Belarusians. And so the question is, how many Belarusians have moved to Poland? 6,000 humanitarian visas have been granted. No, sorry, 8,000 humanitarian visas. 6,000 visas were issued within the framework of the Poland Business Hub program, that is for IT specialists, and the Polish-Belarusian border was crossed by 1,300,000 people. Now, of course, some people could cross the border several times, so we do not know the exact number of Belarusians here in Poland. So the national census was taken in Poland, so soon we will find out how many Belarusians are actually in Poland. But many Belarusians have applied for international protection, that is 1,600 people. Half of them have already been granted that status, so 800 odd people have been granted the international protection status, and the refusal rate is very low. Poland is very loyal to the Belarusians, and Poland helps the Belarusians a lot, within, of course, up to their own capacity and capabilities. But we may say that Ukraine, Lithuania and Poland are the advocates of Belarus, and of course we would like to see more such examples, but it depends on Belarusians themselves and Belarusian activists, initiatives and organizations that keep on reminding about themselves and that they need help. Thank you.
You have actually outlined as the ideal outcome that there will be Belarusians in Poland that feel like they are Belarusians also in the future. It would be necessary to avoid alienation from what's going on in the country, obviously. We've already talked about this on other panels today, especially on the media panel before, that it's difficult to avoid this alienation from what's going on if you're not there. How are you planning to avoid that? And I think that's a very important question for Belarusian diaspora and for everyone here, but what would be your advice?
Honestly, right now, I do not know. I don't know how to answer your question. There is a lot of criticism to opinion leaders, also in Poland, and those Belarusians who have left recently, they criticize the most. I've been here for 6 years now, but many Belarusians who come, they're freshmen, so to speak, and they would be ready to return back to Belarus even tomorrow. So they have a very different type of sentiment, and perhaps staying in Poland for some time will help us to understand better what needs to be done so as not to be alienated.
Milinkevich, I think we all know you, and we are honored to have you on the panel. You are here officially as chairman of Free Belarusian University. We've actually already heard about this project before as well, when there was also talk about the Kalinowski program, and I think we are all curious to hear more in what stage it is and what is actually behind the Free Belarusian University. So that is one question I would like to ask you. And the other one, obviously, as someone who has been actively following Belarusian politics for many, many years and who has been a presidential candidate, what has changed? How has the diaspora changed? How are you observing what we are seeing since 2020 as compared to what we saw before?
Thank you for the invitation to take part in this discussion. I believe that such discussions are very important because due to such discussions, the diaspora and the new wave understand better their own tasks, goals and possibilities, and they better understand their responsibility. Just 2 words about the Belarusian Free University. Just to say that this project is developing very intensively. The objective of this project is to train a large group of people who would know about the processes of transformation in the new EU member states and in the former Soviet republics, so that those people would understand what systemic reforms are all about. And so the primary task is to develop courses on public policies, on public management, economic reforms, financial reforms, and on local government, and so on and so forth. Our partners are most famous universities in Poland. Also, we cooperate with the Natolin European College. This is one of the oldest training centers of European studies, and we are proud that our very important partner in this topic, in this online internet education, is also the Tallinn University, and we know that Estonians are ahead of the entire planet as far as new educational methods are concerned. So this year we are already running 2 courses. One course is Global Mini MBA. This is for entrepreneurs in Belarus, and until Christmas time, this is a course that's going to be run for entrepreneurs. They're very good entrepreneurs, and this is a good quality course. And the second course is the course on local government. And honestly, if it were up to me, I would start the reform of Belarus with local government, because I think local government forms the basis for democracy. So these 2 courses are going on. We're going to expand the number of courses, and next year, among our partners, we're going to have the Florida University, we think. So it's possible due to online training, and it is doable now. The second objective of the university is to develop Belarusian inclusive national online training platform, educational platform. This platform will include the best courses, and primarily we shall use the Belarusian language of instruction, although there will be courses also available in Russian, English, Polish, and it's going to be not only like Global Mini MBA, but would like to have some informal education available as well online. And this is a good perspective, and we have fairly stable sources of financing. And we see that there is a high level of interest in our training activities. But let me deviate from the main topic during this discussion. But I do believe that what I'm going to say is important as well. When we speak about the current situation in Belarus, when we think about when democracy will win in Belarus, we keep thinking about different actors, but we forget about one of the actors. So we keep talking about Lukashenko, we keep talking about the West, we keep talking about the opposition that has been forced to emigrate. So civil society and journalists have left it. And we speak about the Kremlin and how the Kremlin affects it all. But I think that more often than not, even advanced Democrats think that once Lukashenko is gone as the principal source of evil, immediately we'll end up with well-being, Europe, and freedom. Yes, Lukashenko is the main obstacle to freedom. However, I should say that the largest trials are awaiting for the Belarusians, and this is the task for the new way for Belarusians. When Lukashenko is gone, once he's gone, this is when a very serious, desperate fight shall be unleashed by the Kremlin to get Belarus. They're already fighting, but this is going to happen to a major extent. This would be done against the background of serious economic crisis and impoverishment of the population. We think that this is the time when the true parliament will be elected and when the Belarusian language returns to its due position. But I would like to say that for Moscow, fight for Belarus once Lukashenko is gone. And it actually may happen upon Moscow's initiative. For Moscow, it will be the last battle to promote their idea of the Ruski Mir. That is the principal idea of Putin, to have this Ruski Mir. And Ukraine is never going to return back to this empire because Ukrainian identity is very strong as in the result of the war, and Ukraine is going to be independent and self-sufficient. But for Moscow, if Belarus becomes even a neutral country, it's going to be a personal tragedy for Moscow and Putin. So the question is, do the Belarusians feel to be Belarusians? Do they feel themselves to be a nation?
Do they understand their geopolitical position? And we might be lacking Belarusian identity, self-awareness, cultural self-awareness, historical self-awareness. And it is important for the diaspora as well, because it's decided not here and now. These are hundreds, thousands of people who live in Belarus, who are left in Belarus. And here we speak about diasporas, about emigration. But people can go into internal emigration. They will not be in favor of Lukashenko, but they might lose hope. And leaders, Belarusian leaders, have to create positive atmosphere for those who took to the streets and are now disappointed. They are not in depression. In summer, I traveled around Belarus, and I must say that even local leaders are a little bit disappointed. Are we ready to carry out reforms? Poles can do that, Lithuanians can do reforms, but Belarusians, are we capable of that? We have to know that we are not worse than other nations. We are capable of reforms. Perestroika showed that it takes several years. So identity, national self-awareness, and only then Belarusians can make a choice between Moscow. When Lukashenko is gone, Moscow is going to offer a difficult choice. It will be like a volcano. Moscow is going to say, we offer you 2 pipelines, join the pipelines, and you are going to be offering a good well-being. Only the spirit, internal spirit of the nation can help us as it is helping Ukraine, or it used to help the Baltic states who took those difficult choices. So please remember that we can do it using education. By educational initiatives, we can strengthen the national spirit. Without it, there will be no hope for the future.
Thank you very much. I will ask the same question again. I would still like to hear something about how it has changed, what has changed since last August, because I think no one can really answer this question better than you here, as someone who has really followed the events for many years. If you could briefly share your impressions, are we in the same loop as we have been after previous elections, and is also the diaspora actually in the same kind of stage maybe as it was in 2011 when the Belarusian House was opened here, or are we at a totally different point of time, and do we also have to focus on totally different things?
Speaking of diaspora, it is much more pro-Belarusian now. It is not the economically minded diaspora. I don't like the word diaspora. When we define the diaspora, this is the organization, self-organization of people representing the same nationality, which is not going to go back. Now we are speaking about the diaspora of the new wave of people who want to return to Belarus at some point and want to introduce reforms. But this is the discussion about terminology. Nobody could predict that there would be an outburst of such civic activity, the feeling of dignity, the intention to define Belarusian future. Belarusians proved that they are a nation, not only citizens of the country. It's a huge leap forward. I like this example. My colleagues who live in France and are important politicians in Paris, and they are asking me, Aliaksandr, do we have more Europe in Belarus or in France? Because in France, whenever we have protests, people smash windows, there are explosions, and in your case, these are so cultured protests. So where do we have true Europe? It is a joke, but it is our very positive image, even seen from the outside. But even from the inside, we have the feeling of dignity. Belarusians started to respect themselves. And when you ask diasporas around the globe, people are saying we actually have regained our dignity. We respect ourselves. We are becoming a political nation, but in this sense of Belarusian nation, it is a huge challenge, a huge problem for building the future of a Belarusian country and people. During Perestroika in Grodno, we had one of the first informal organizations called Pochodnia, which was dealing with historical heritage and cultural legacy. This was the organization in Grodno. And I was surprised that Belarusians became Belarusians within several years in my native town, thanks to the activity of 300 activists who were represented in this organization. We published books and booklets. We spread the word. We didn't change the world, but we did a lot. I believe we have positive prospects. Putin doesn't want to replace Lukashenko because Putin can see that there is a civic society under the white, red, and white banner, which is a huge obstacle for the Kremlin. So we have to remember about fighting the problems and challenges, and we have to remember what has to be changed.
Ales Zarembiuk, to close the round of people with the same name. I would like to hear from you actually what has changed in your practical work. Last year, obviously, and we have already heard that from you also during the first panel, a lot more has happened than in previous years. A lot more people have come to Poland again, and I'm sure the work of the Belarusian House has expanded. What does this mean in practical terms? Are you focusing on, do you have to focus more on direct ad hoc help now? What is it, how you feel this actually in the work of the Belarusian House that 2020 has happened?
Thank you, Christopher. Что касается Белорусского дома,
as regards the Belarusian House Foundation, compared to what happened 10 years ago, 10 years ago we established our foundation as representatives of a political emigration, as people who were forced to leave Belarus in 2010 after local elections or after the presidential election. We were forced to leave Belarus and we arrived in Poland, and we wanted to continue our civic activity in Poland, and we wanted to share our experience and learn from the experience of Polish transformation, Polish changes in the Polish society. And in the past, there were no assistance programs, no aid. After 2010, 2,000 people were arrested in the aftermath of the presidential election back in 2010. It was a disastrous situation. We were shocked, and there was a huge wave of repression. But what we saw in August of 2020 and later on, representatives of different organizations of different countries, there are dozens of initiatives in Poland, in Łódź, Białystok, Warsaw, dozens of initiatives and organizations. And we have a lot of work during the entire 15 months. We are working day in, day out, because unfortunately the situation is dire, and this wave, unprecedented wave of repressions, of reprisals is underway. 212 people in October contacted us. In spring there were 60, 70 people per month. Now there are more and more people that are seeking help. Because of the situation at the Polish-Belarusian border, the focus is on Belarus still, but there is a shift towards a different problem. And during our discussions, we have tackled urgent issues. A person has to escape quickly from the difficult situation, has to find mentors that will help with housing from the very beginning, because it is very difficult to find housing, whether it's in Germany or in Poland. Many diasporas around the world are collecting, raising funds and help people in Poland or Lithuania to offer assistance from the very beginning, to help with housing, to help with kindergartens. It's a huge problem in Poland. It is very difficult to get access to kindergartens in Poland, not only for Belarusians. With schools it is easier, but it is very necessary to help people to start everything from scratch. And we have to offer this ad hoc help, individual targeted assistance. For example, this week there was a situation of a woman who was arrested, was beaten up. She lives near Germany in Lower Silesia, and she had problems walking. First she thought there was some health issue, and it turned out she needed surgery. It could be offered under NFZ, National Health Funds insurance, but she has to wait for a year or a year and a half because there are queues for surgeries, and we offered donation. 12,000 zloty, which is around 3,000 euro, a little bit below 3,000 euro. And it is real help, real assistance. And when you ask this person to tell her story, as guys have been saying, some people offer 1 zloty, 1 euro, and they want to know who are we helping as part of our organization. And people are afraid because they have relatives, they have brothers and sisters or parents back at home in Belarus. So they are afraid of disclosing information. And this is another challenge we have to deal with. And we have to spread the word and collect facts and information about the crimes of this regime, and use practical examples of the way the regime made these people suffer. And we have to look at the situation, at the mistake made by our people in 1994. And we have to spread this information. And this woman, she never referred for help. And she has been living in Poland for several months. And she had problems walking, which means that although there are many of us and there are a number of initiatives, before people learn about that, before they fight their fear, and before they ask for help, a lot of time may pass. Starting in August 2020, people were beaten up, battered, and 15 months have passed, and we are still facing the problems. And this is one of the examples. There are many examples of this kind. If we compare it with 2011, we didn't have such a situation.
Until August 2020, we had never been dealing with helping migrants and refugees. We had been dealing with informal education, info campaigns. We had been organizing workshops for different groups from Belarus, for students, historians, entrepreneurs. We were establishing cooperation with youth organizations in Poland. There was youth exchange. So those were the statutory goals that we were pursuing and we will be pursuing. However, beginning with August, we started integrating business community entrepreneurs, those who had to abandon whatever they built in Belarus, and they had to go here to Poland. And so every week we organize business breakfasts for them, business meetings within the framework of the Business Forum. So last Saturday we had a side event with them. We also work with women's groups. So on Fridays we have meetings with them. Also we work with refugees, and before 2020, we had not had those types of activities, but those processes, unfortunately, 15 months on, they have become even more important. Now it's 212 people who applied for help this month alone. And this agenda is going to stay valid. It's here to stay with us for a longer period of time with us, because the repression machine is there working. And it is important to continue these miscellaneous integrational programs, and this is what Dr. Aliaksandr Milinkevich mentioned. That is about national identity. We see that the sense of national identity is growing, and we have been approached by 5,000 people. And not many speak Belarusian, and when we read and talk to them on the phone, out of 5,000 people, maybe 100 people would use Belarusian language. But this is an important issue, because our language, our tradition, our culture, and our Belarusian history, European history, is our sole protection against our wonderful neighbor, the Russians, who keep on acting and utilizing hybrid tactics. They are exercising their hybrid tactics in Georgia, in Ukraine, and with regard to European countries. So this is how it looks, and all those activities, new forms of activities that we have been running for the last 15 months is something that had not been here 10 years ago. But what we started 10 years ago, and that level of trust and those contacts and the reputation that we had developed over a span of 10 years, this is what allowed us to provide for more efficient legalization, and we are more effective with finding education, arranging for humanitarian visas for the Belarusian refugees to Poland. And last week I attended a Belarusian, German, Polish roundtable, and German experts and representatives of the German Foreign Affairs Ministry confirmed that Poland did the most for the Belarusians, and everything was best prepared here in Poland. And so this period of 10 years of our activities in Poland contributed to that, I hope. And to conclude, all those organizations, Belarusian organizations that have appeared after 2020, it's important for them to continue their work in the countries where they operate, because such contacts will be very much needed for us in order to conduct speedy and effective reforms. And this is what the Free University is preparing for. We need specialists. And this is what I mentioned. We need specialists with non-Soviet, non-Lukashenko, not post-Soviet mentality. We need people with new mentality. We need to change the country with new mentality. And that is why we need the potential of the diaspora, wherever they are, in the Netherlands, in the US, in Ukraine, in Poland, or in Germany.
Important because despite all the high politics, and I work for a political foundation myself, what diaspora organizations often do, and by the way, I fully agree that the term diaspora is debatable, is about humans and very many individual stories that many of you are experiencing every day. So I think it's very important to remind us of that. Are there questions in the audience? I will wait for 10 more seconds. Yes, please. Microphone.
It's not a question, it's more of a comment. You were speaking a lot about national identity, but in journalism, when we speak about language, culture, literature, from the point of view of journalists, these topics are less in demand than what otherwise is more important to fill the newsroom with content. And we know that a lot happened in 2020, but still, as far as the national identity issues are concerned, they are not so much in demand. There is more demand for other intellectual and informational products. We know this is a problem, but we need to think about it, and we need to come up with a solution to promote it. Microphone, please.
Hands right now. Maybe someone wants to react to that.
Yes, just to answer to that with reference to national identity. Yes, you are right. Unfortunately, if the number of likes and the number of views of material in the Belarusian language is on other topics, not this one. But this has to be done. We have really beautiful examples of countries which were non-existent, but they were capable of returning their languages to life. And perhaps even if the audience is small, but still it is important. Even if we look at the diaspora, within the diaspora we have many people who have come here, and they're all Russian speakers. Many of them are Russian speakers, and by and by they start changing. This is a long process, but if we do not do it, then we will never be capable of enlarging the group of people with this consciousness. So we need to promote it, and despite poor viewership and little content available, whatever content is there, it should be high quality. And I'm absolutely confident that we are going to see an ever-increasing demand for such high-quality content. But it will take us not weeks, not months, not years. It will take us decades. But we need to do it. And Euroradio, I don't know, I think we have all programs in Belarusian language. Actually, whatever information we post is in the Belarusian language, and we will never change that. This is our position. That is the position of our radio station. Some time ago, I was lucky to deal with Belarusization in Grodno in the beginning of the 1990s. The communists then, even before the collapse of the Soviet Union, the communists had that idea that from grade 1 to grade 10 they would have the Belarusian language at schools. And then at grade 10 Perhaps universities will start with the Belarusian language as the language of instruction. My position is the following. If we are forcefully going to implant the Belarusian language, we're going to spoil it all, and the Belarusians will turn against the language. It's a very subtle matter. We need to be delicate, and this could be done only by the authorities that understand the significance of the language in shaping national identity. So whatever people come to power, they have to be very careful with the language issue, as not to scare people. It's very difficult to deal with it. We need to also deal with the history of Belarus. We may tell this history in the Russian language, but in the Belarusian, but we can tell that in the Russian language as well. It turns out that even graduates of history at our universities know little about Belarusian history. And Belarusian history will give us this sweet understanding that we are not worse than the others and maybe we're better than the others. We have national heroes. We have people of heroic acts and tragic acts, and people do not know about this history. And it gives me the sense of joy, of happiness. I remember during the perestroika time, I discovered Belarusian history for myself, and this should be done. It could be done. And apart from this national factor, what is very important, not to keep thinking about Lukashenko and sanctions, because people who listen, they understand that Lukashenko is bad and sanctions are fair but also harsh. But these people need some positive thinking and some belief, and I think that we need to show this spirit that we know how, we have people, we have bright people, we need to give interviews with those people, we should organize a discussion platforms on future reforms, and many diplomats that I speak to here in Warsaw and other places, diplomats say, you're great people, you know how to fight for freedom, but we do not know, and our people do not know, how you're going to build New Belarus. I mean, you may have a program, you may have experts, you may have people in different offices who work there, but people, even Democrats in Belarus don't know about it, so we have to spread the news. We need to show in different discussion platforms that we do have capabilities, and this also raises the spirit, because it shows that there are many of us. We can do it, we have the knowledge, we have the competence. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and diaspora is best positioned to do that, the new diaspora, but also the old diaspora can do that.
Okay.
In fact, the example of Ukraine may be useful here. Well, the language situation there is quite different. There have always been regions that spoke only Ukrainian, and there were other regions who spoke only Russian. Now there is this shift towards the Ukrainian language, but the Ukrainian language has always been the official language. But Kiev is actually a Russian-speaking city. And until now, yes, there are disputes, and even if universities and secondary schools have Ukrainian as the language of instruction, still they have some other schools that have Russian as the language of instruction, although they don't admit it. And even in Kiev, there used to be a saying that you have a Russian-speaking girl, change the girl. But now it's no longer there. We're quite liberal as far as the language issue is concerned, because we see to what extremes the language issue may lead to. So we try to speak different languages to our audience. We even speak Ukrainian language, speaking to Belarusians in Ukraine. But Belarusians who have left are very much more interested in their history, in their language, and their roots. They are much more interested in the notion of historic memory, because once you see the notional other when abroad, and then we see what makes us different from the others, you understand what your identity is all about. So as you go to Lithuania, Poland, or Georgia, for that matter, all the better you see the differences, all the better you see the distinctive features, even in Ukraine, even in Russia. So I think that this is the point of time when we use this window of opportunity to tell people about who we are. Because We actually found out about each other last summer, and we will learn about each other even more. And in Ukraine, initially, when the Ukrainian language was established in cinemas and on Ukrainian TV, there were many protests, but then it all smoothed out, and now it's just fine. And due to the fact that in Ukraine they have very well developed show business, it's much easier for them to do it in Ukraine than in Belarus, because in Belarus we've never had good TV where we could promote some content in the Belarusian language. But in Ukraine there is a crazy frenzy for all sorts of shows. They have YouTube channels and TV programs, and they keep talking about Ukraine, what the country is all about, what the geographical and historical features of Ukraine. And it's such cool stuff. You really want to watch it, regardless of whether you're Ukrainian or not. And so Belarusians probably have to develop this type of content, and it will be because people have demand. People want to hear that, and so we need to satisfy that need. Thank you.
I don't want to interrupt the discussion. I just want to say that last week at Minsk Forum in Vilnius, there was a whole panel on Belarusian identity. So it may be interesting to also look at what was discussed last week for those who are particularly interested in that. But nonetheless, Yuri.
Добрый вечер. Меня зовут.
My name is Yura. I came in August 2020, and Sasha Lapko helped me a lot. So I'm very grateful. Let us focus on the real problems of the Belarusian diaspora nowadays. So the real issue is that people need integration. They need to learn Polish here in Poland. I understand the importance of Belarusian culture and Belarusian language. Whenever I can, I speak Belarusian, but here and now we need help with learning Polish. Palina, thank you a lot. Alice, thank you a lot. Belarusian Solidarity Center, thank you. The Belarusian House Foundation, thank you. But let us try to integrate these people, because this is a real problem now. This diaspora has emerged and is growing right now. And we need to help people in order to think about these high values. They have to find a job, housing, find their place in this world, in this country. Then discussion about Belarusian identity will be more developed when people stop thinking about how to pay rent next month. So please, dear Belarusian organizations and foundations in Warsaw, please pay attention to these issues about learning Polish. Please attract teachers who could teach Belarusians, teach Polish language to them, because it is a huge hurdle, a huge barrier. So please, please pay attention to that. Thank you.
Get Aliaksandr on board again, because I think this is an issue that we also have in Germany, with German language. So maybe you can tell us a little bit if RAZAM does something in this regard, and how you think this is handled in Germany, that people have issues to integrate because of language, that they have issues to work because of language. What you do on that?
Для тех людей, которые
Those who have humanitarian visas, immediately they have access to German courses. The German state does this. It offers such programs, so RAZAM doesn't have to be involved in that. So we may organize meetings and explain how to get registered for such a language course, but the German state actually solves this issue. It is not part of our activity in terms of language courses because it is done at the level of the German state. Of course, we help with integration in German society. Our volunteers try to assist people to establish contacts with Germans, to explain something to newcomers, explain things about the German mindset, worldview. So language courses are organized by the state in Germany. I wanted to mention we have 3 courses at the moment organized by the Belarusian House. A week or 2 weeks ago, we established the entire group, new group of students. And there is a huge demand for Polish language courses. We have recruitment which is open, and via Facebook we have the information about how to get enrolled for the course, and we have a queue actually, and we will open new courses for new groups of trainees. So I'm open about that. One of our teachers, unfortunately, is going to give birth to a baby, fortunately, but she cannot continue teaching. And we are looking for teachers. It's a hot issue. Thank you for attracting our attention to that. Let me add. The Belarusian Youth Hub, after the last election, we paid a lot of attention to humanitarian help and aid. Now, we focus on giving a fishing rod instead of a fish. So we want to help people to help themselves. So we offer them tools to solve issues like the Maslow's pyramid, because first you need to find money to pay for rent, to buy food. People who come here are usually well qualified. They have 2 diplomas sometimes, but they work in Poland as cleaning ladies or shop assistants very often. So unlike the Belarusian House Foundation and some of the other organizations, we have chosen a different approach, a different path. As a youth organization, we cooperate with Polish universities that also offer Polish language courses. For example, the Warsaw University, the Łódź University offers 100 slots for Belarusians. The university in Poznań, thanks to e-learning mode and online courses, you can take part in a language course despite of the place where you reside. So please keep in touch with us. Please write to us, contact us. Whoever hears my words, we publish information about the enrollment, so it's not a physical queue. You can enroll online, so please keep track of information. We offer quite a number of courses, so even now a teacher wrote a text message to me, a teacher of the Polish language who wants to teach Polish to refugees, and I'm going to call her. So we will offer yet another course. So even online people contact us thanks to today's event. So we can see that there is a huge demand for that. So please contact the Belarusian Youth Hub. I would like to add that there are no state programs in Poland as regards teaching Polish language, which is different from Germany. In Ukraine, it is not in demand because every Belarusian understands Ukrainian. Why not in demand? We have language courses, Ukrainian language courses as well. We have always been organizing Polish language courses. We even attracted some of the teachers during the health resort stay last year when our guys were in the health resort. And we cooperated with the University of Warsaw, and professional lecturers taught Polish. And we are also attracting effective, efficient teachers who are successful in teaching Polish. We are selecting the best ones. And still there is huge demand for Polish language courses. It is also related to the statistical data. In spring, there were fewer people compared to the current situation, although the borders have been closed down. More and more people arrive in Poland, so we have to organize 3-4-fold more courses. For example, we have 15 participants at the moment, which is a kind of not very efficient. 8 people in a group is the optimal approach. The fewer people, the better.
So Alyona Kulic already had to wait quite a lot of time.
Спасибо большое за интересные.
Thank you very much for these interesting speeches and discussions. In 2020, the diaspora is of a different quality, and it has emerged actually, and we could finally see each other. And so my question refers to the future. Maybe you can briefly answer my question. Are you happy with the state, the shape of the diaspora, not in separate countries? Poland, for example, we have different organizations, but also in other countries. Is there cooperation between different diasporas? And is there a potential for concerted efforts so that we become stronger together? So your subjective points of view.
The second question has already been answered before. There is definitely cooperation. But the first question is still an important one, and maybe we can actually really close with that. Are you satisfied with the amount of cooperation? Are you also generally satisfied with what is done right now? I mean, there can always be done more, but how do you think Belarusian diaspora organizations are generally doing overall right now for the cause of Belarusians in need? And I start with Ales. One of the 4, Ales.
Как мы узнали, Palina
Alexandrovna. So everyone is Alexander or Alexander related. So speaking of effectiveness of cooperation and communication between diasporas, let me say that there are Belarusians abroad as an initiative before the election. These are Belarusians who wanted to organize themselves and carried out exit polls. Then Belarusians abroad initiative was established. Then Belarusian ambassadors in order to promote the diaspora's agenda, together with Svetlana Tikhanovska's office and democratic forces. So the strength of diasporas and the fact that we have joint efforts means that the regime reacts to that. There are a lot of video materials and films about the way that there are some puppeteers, masterminds behind the diasporas, but we are not destroyed. We trust each other. In late September in Vilnius, Tsikhanovska's office organized a conference for diasporas and representatives of various organizations from European countries, first of all, were present because it was easier for them to arrive, but there were participants online. Then there was the second Congress of Belarusians in the world, which also indicates that the previous Congress was not only a one-time event. It means that we do not want to stop. We want to cooperate and develop, and we are becoming stronger. We are growing stronger, and we understand the role of Belarusians abroad, and we understand that we can do a lot for Belarusians. In 2020, it all started. 2021, we have grown stronger, and we will be stronger in 2022. And the third Congress of Belarusians in the world will be organized, and the national embassies have developed different initiatives, including the yacht meeting of Belarusians from abroad. So we have a lot of plans for the future.
Of course, everyone should still answer this question, but quickly, please. And slowly.
Хорошо. Я думаю, что это вопрос.
Well, perhaps we are talking about excessively high expectations that everyone wants to have everything good immediately as soon as Lukashenko is gone. This is not going to happen, and diaspora cannot become an ideal diaspora within a year. Of course, there will be conflicts within the diaspora, and of course, people will come and go. There will be people whom we trust too much and people whom do we not trust enough. This is normal, and one should not expect something completely unbelievable to happen within such a short period of time. So civil society and diaspora need time. This is just the beginning. They have just been concepted, so they have to start developing. Just like with a little baby, it needs to grow. And I'm happy to see this little organism growing. It is growing. I just would like to say that there is coordination. People meet each other, people talk to each other, and I think that perhaps we should talk less and do more. And when you asked about the language courses here in the room, it proves the point that we need to do more. There are expectations. People were forced to leave Belarus, and they are expecting us to do things. And another thing, the regime and the services, they keep on trying, sowing distrust within the diaspora. They're trying to bring about conflicts artificially. They are trying to make us quarrel. All of those propaganda tricks prove that point. They are trying to make us quarrel. But the diaspora, as I said before, the diaspora has indeed become a very influential force. Diaspora is independent, and beginning with 2020, the diaspora is there, and the diaspora is going to influence the course of events in Belarus. And the diaspora is not going to depend on the possible links between the West and regimes, although I do hope there will be no such links. But the diaspora is there to stay influential. And the diaspora has already shown that the diaspora is capable of raising funds and financing their own activities. And the diaspora has proven their capability of raising funds for giving aid. Huge money has been raised, and this is a historical act of solidarity, regardless of the problems. And what is also important is that within the diaspora, we now see new organizations that that are being managed from the Kremlin, from Russian embassies. This is what the Kremlin is doing. The Kremlin is trying to create alternative diaspora. The Kremlin wants to create a new alternative diaspora that is going to implement Kremlin's scenarios, and this is important to remember about that there is this alternative diaspora on the rise, and we do have to remember about our own national formats.
Yeah, okay, then it's a German-Belarusian forum after all, so then the very last statement comes from the German diaspora representative today.
Well, although a year has already passed, I said that the Belarusian diaspora in Germany has great potential, has a lot of energy. More and more people join us, and they're offering help. And some people burn out, that's true. But still, there are many newcomers who come, who approach us, and are interested in giving help, and they're asking how they could help. And of course, we all hoped that in summer 2020 the change would occur quickly, but we understand that what is important is to do whatever we can do properly, and even if we are capable of helping at least one person who had suffered, it's already important. It already gives all of us some sense of belonging, sense of a common idea that we have found each other, that we have all united, that we're all united in around the same ideas. And therefore I would say that many people say that Belarus will never be the same as it used to be before 2020, but the same could be said about the Belarusian diaspora. It is never going to be as apolitical as it was prior to 2020. It's never going to be that we have found each other, and so we're going to continue.
Most powerful last words we could have had for the day. Thank you very much for our panel. Thank you. He said he didn't want to add anymore. Does he? Okay, then please.
Just briefly, this is a colossal potential as never before that lies within the Belarusian diaspora. I believe and I hope that this potential is going to be implemented, and I do appeal to you, do not listen to those who say that nothing is left in Belarus, that the most influential organizations have been burnt out. But the people are there, and those people are there. They work in very difficult and harsh conditions. And what I see as a task for the diaspora in the free world is to help those who are still in Belarus, and they're going to stay there. It's a very difficult task, but it's a doable task. And this is what I appeal to. And undoubtedly, that is going to increase, to boost your own potential. Thank you.
Ben?